Bills Mafia, what is going on? Good evening and happy Thursday. How are we tonight? Welcome to this week's episode of Buffalo Late Night on the Cover One Sports Network. We have a jam-packed show for you this evening. I'm so glad you've chosen to be with us. My name is Thomas Solas. I am the host here. Man, it's been a weird week, hasn't it? It's a little wild, a little strange. We thought we were in for a bit of a quiet one. No, apparently not. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us. If you are listening on Spotify, happy Friday to you. You can find our show free on all social media and streaming platforms, including Spotify and YouTube, or however you choose to pod. If you're watching on Twitter right now, hop on over and join us. Come to that YouTube page, join the conversation. That's the only way you're going to be able to chat with us truly. So get on over here. Let's get talking. Also, want to make sure you hit that subscribe button on our YouTube page and make sure you're hitting that notification button as well. It'll let you know every time one of our shows goes live here on the Cover One Network. Super chats are open. And we want to hear from you. We want you guys to join the conversation. It should be good. Now, I've got some exciting news for you guys. I got two fantastic giveaways. If you follow me on Twitter, you already know this. But if you're not, well, you need to be. Right now, on my Twitter, you'll be finding out that at the very top, you'll see a pinned tweet. I'm giving away some Buffalo Bills tickets, both regular season and preseason tickets. Also, the second one is for a copy of Madden 24. And you know why that's important. Our guy, Josh Allen, QB number 1, JA17 is on the cover. So make sure you hit that follow button to be entered. My brother Ian will go ahead and post those links in the chat. You already did. Look how fast he is at that. Also, now we are officially 1 month away from Buffalo Bills training camp. Make sure you subscribe to Cover One, as well as Cover One Pass for all the best coverage. You know that we've got it. You know we deliver. You know the guys at Cover One have got you covered. So make sure you're hitting that stuff. We get the best analysis heading into the 2023 season. So come join us. Come along for the ride. We will be at training camp, all of us. If you are there, by the way, come over and say hello. Say hi. We don't bite. Well, maybe Greg does. Tonight, we got a loaded show. At the top of the show, we have the AFCEast reporter for Fox Sports, Mr. Henry McKenna, and also my guy, the owner of Buffalo on the Brain, the other Goodberry, Mr. Glenn Goodberry. Fellas, what is going on tonight?
How are you?
Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you both. It's been a wild week here for us Buffalo Bills fans, and obviously it's one of those situations that we're just kind of diving headfirst into what's going on. So obviously, Henry, I reached out to you a couple days ago to find out what the inside scoop was. I know you had spoken with Diggs trainers. So why don't we just get right into this? You spoke with Myron Flowers. You spoke with the guy who has a pretty good relationship with Diggs himself. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when I was chatting with Myron, he wanted to, there was like a strong vibe of wanting to set the record straight. He felt like Diggs was misunderstood in terms of that sideline interaction that he had with Josh Allen in the Bengals game. I guess before that, in the drive before that, I guess there was moments where, Josh Allen assured Diggs, oh, you're going to get the ball, or you're going to get targets here, you're going to get targets there. And those didn't happen. And I think the drive didn't go well. And Diggs was upset, where were my targets? Where were the balls that you said I was going to get? Of course, counterpoint is I think he got 10 targets that game, right? And 4 catches, something like that. So it was a tough game for him. And that obviously the Bengals were keying in on him. And then the other thing was, I think he told me that, I think what he thought would be best, meaning Myron, but also I think by way of Diggs too, was that if Stefon showed up to minicamp, that he would get the opportunity to speak with the coaches and sort of get the sense of why the team took a bit of a step back last year in their playoff run, and what the plan would be going forward for the team and for Diggs to help them get to the Super Bowl, to win the Super Bowl. And it turns out that's what happened. And Diggs got to meet with Sean McDermott. I guess the new receivers coach was in the room at some point, and I think Brandon Beane was there too. And so there was an open dialogue. What that dialogue, how it came to a conclusion, is sort of anyone's guess at this point. But what we know is that he was talking to Sean McDermott in the morning of Tuesday before practice, and his intention was to practice that day. And then by practice time, he was no longer in the facility. So I think there's sort of some mystery about what happened in those, like in like that hour or those hours. And then the Bills by Wednesday, right? Yeah. Were basically trying to put out the fire of everything. And McDermott was saying, oh, I said I was very concerned, but the thing about that is that I wasn't. And so there was a bit of makeup stuff. So anyway, he says it's resolved. I don't think that's true. I think that this is like a moving target, and Diggs wants to win a Super Bowl, and anything short of a Super Bowl, he'll be upset again probably. But for now, seems like they've kind of discussed enough things to get him on the football field, and that's kind of where everything starts to move forward finally. Is as long as he's practicing, this team is going to be okay.
Right. Yeah. The big thing I think that a lot of people have sat there and wondered is what kind of, residual effect is this going to have on a team? Because normally when you have a Super Bowl window, you don't want your number one receiver, one of your stars, one of your captains causing some type of tidal wave. Because it's not just, you're not talking ripples. This is a tidal wave. This is a massive, potentially franchise altering situation that could happen. So based on what you talked about with Myron, do you perceive this as a type of situation that was going on potentially even, beyond that Bengals game at the end of the season, that this was something that maybe matriculated into middle parts of last season?
So you're asking, like, was this a problem? Yeah, prior to the game. I'm sure that it came from somewhere. But a part of me feels like, and this is not necessarily from the conversation with Myron, but it's just my speculation, which is I think the Bills set this expectation for Super Bowls, and they're doing it basically every year now, which is fine. But the thing that they have to deal with is what happens when they come up shorter than the year before. What happens when they don't get the Super Bowl, right? Because 31 teams don't every year, and so even when you're the best team or the second or the third best team in the league, you may not end up with a Super Bowl. And so that's why like a lot of teams manage expectations a little bit more, at least outwardly facing when they're talking with the media for it. So, but in the building, they set the expectation they wanted to win a Super Bowl. And I think like maybe it just boils up in that game where they got a little bit embarrassed, honestly. I hate to use that word, but it was a tough look for them. And, I think maybe Diggs felt like he could have done more had he been given more opportunities. And then I think what kind of brought it to a head this offseason, I'm sure that him and Josh Allen were in regular contact, but I wonder how closely the organization was in contact with Diggs to the point where he got to the mini camp and was having this dialogue, and there was enough surprise in that minicamp for him to think he was going to practice and then not practice. Surely they were on such a different page that it was like, well, why haven't you all been talking all off season? Shouldn't you have sorted some stuff out by now, to the point where he's not changing direction in the course of an hour or two?
Right. That's my concern. Obviously this has been something going on, and even there were people that pointed out week 10 when you saw the video of Sean McDermott kind of hugging, Stefon Diggs on the sideline. Was there dialogue? And if maybe there was dialogue and there was a perception of what was going on, which is why Adisa Bakari, Stefon Diggs' agent, said he was kind of blindsided by McDermott's comments of being very concerned, which is not all that surprising. He was prompted by Adam Benini from Buffalo News, well, not the Buffalo News, but a Buffalo news station, that he, was he concerned with the situation, that you would think in that whole roundabout way that they would have had a conversation prior to that. But I think, at least from what a lot of people are thinking, that something changed. That maybe he was pacified up until that point, and they told him, "Of course, Stefon, everything will be fine. The playbook will, get, more well-rounded, and we'll get you more targets." And maybe that was not, in fact, the case. Maybe that when he saw that it kind of changed, and I feel like that's what we're seeing is the latter of he's now been put into a kind of a precarious position where there was expectations met, and maybe those weren't what he perceived.
Yeah, and the tough thing is we probably won't know because they want this to go away. And the probing that I was doing, with on the record with Myron Flowers and off the record with a few folks, I was really not digging anything up, and that's kind of, I think, how it's going to go from here on. They just want this to go away, and they just want the team to start focusing on next year or this year rather than last year, which is smart. I think Sean McDermott is a good leader. I mean, he dealt with, I wrote about it last season. He dealt with tremendous adversity with DeMar Hamlin's situation, and he made really sound decisions and supported his guys through the process, managed to get them into the playoffs. And maybe they weren't playing their best football at the end of the year, but you can obviously see why they were vulnerable, both on the football field and off the football field. So it's a new year. They're not going to be dealing with, a freak tragedy or freak accident. Luckily, it didn't end up being a tragedy. It's a story of adversity and perseverance. But I don't know. I think this season has the potential for the Bills to be, right back up at the top of the division. Certainly that's the expectation, but they can falter. I mean, the stakes are really high for them. The Jets are going to be a very good football team, in my opinion. The Patriots are going to be sneaky good, even if they're not going to be like a playoff team. And I think, obviously, the Dolphins are a danger. You saw them twice at the end of the season. So I don't know, Glenn, what are you thinking about all this?
Back to your point with the Diggs situation, I'm curious as far as, say we go back to that Bengal game and he does get his production, but they end up losing. Josh didn't look good as it was anyway in that game, even with the 10 targets and only 4 catches. It maybe, there was only opportunity for Diggs to really get, those 4 catches or so. Would he still be happy if he did get his production, the ball was in his hands for him to make those plays, but they still lost? You're looking at hypotheticals, but I'm just trying to look at the other angle of, the ball being in Diggs's court in this situation. I am under the understanding that maybe it should have been more forced to Diggs. You're down, in that game, and you want to be able to put the ball in your, one of your best players' hands. But, I think Diggs had a comment also. He was doing like a postseason radio tour where he was saying that the Bills had a mid-season philosophy. Although they were winning games, they went on that winning streak. He didn't seem happy with the direction the offense was going in last year anyway. As they, were sort of developing and changing a little bit as the season progressed. But I don't know. I kind of want this as a fan to be swept under the rug. I want to move forward, and I want to see what they can do this year. I want a sound-minded Stefon Diggs. And if Josh Allen is as focused as he says he's been going into this year, I'm hoping that they can pull it together, and hopefully their best footballs at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Henry.
Yeah, I'll chime in. I think one thing that maybe Diggs is upset with, like, again, this is not even a informed opinion. This is just my opinion.
Sure.
Is like, I wonder if he's worried that he doesn't have enough help. And maybe that's another reason why they feel like they can't talk about it, because it reflects poorly on everyone, where Diggs looks bad because he feels like, hey, these are my friends in the position group, so I can't say anything, but like, why is Gabe Davis still wide receiver 2 when last year he struggled? And Brandon Beane will tell you it was the ankle. But, I think also you have to be realistic about whether he can actually break out and be the wide receiver 2 that they need, because like, that's why you get 10 targets and you can only get 4 receptions. The guy is the offense. He's the whole offense. And there's no quick game. There's only the deep game. There's only improvisation from Josh Allen. There's running from him. He's taken a lot of hits. It's just like not a high efficiency offense. It's like a high octane, but like they're only revving at like, the highest level. There's nothing in between. So I think it's going to be interesting with Dalton Kincaid. I'm doing a feature on him coming up let's hope it comes out in early July, probably, just because I'm taking a little vacation here. But you'll be interested. Glenn, you said like, oh, well, I wonder like if the stats are there, but he's still yelling at Josh Allen on the sideline, or he's still leaving the facility early, or he's still missing the first day of minicamp. I think people will be refreshed to hear about Dalton Kincaid, who's a guy that's like, his coaches just were, and this is something you hear every, June about first rounders or whatever. It's like, oh, a team first guy. But like, this guy is actually the kind of kid that like all he cares about is winning a championship. All he cares about is doing whatever he can to get a win and not getting a Pro Bowl. And I think you need a Stefon Diggs. You need a guy that wants to get his, but you also need guys that are team forward, and they're going to get 6 catches one week and 2 the next week, and they're okay with that. But the team opens up the intermediate game, opens up the quick game that can come in and out and provide a little bit of diversity to an offense that became maybe not predictable, but one-dimensional, I think, oftentimes.
Yeah. Sean McDermott and the Bills have a history with their rookies, though, you hear that they trust their veteran guys. You saw it with Kaiir Elam last year. And will Dalton Kincaid get, the opportunities that, say, maybe a veteran guy might get? We would love to see Kincaid get the reps, especially if he's producing. And I would assume that maybe if he is producing, he will get it. But, a lot of us would be upset to see him really sort of have a limited role because of, just being a rookie.
I suspect he will have a situational role, especially in the beginning of the season. But like you said, if he is a guy that, especially like, consider if he can be more of a run blocker than he's initially showed on his film. And the coaches that I spoke to in college, they're always going to say, oh yeah, he's the best player we've ever had in the whole world. And he will be in the NFL too. That's what you always get from the college coaches. But they do have faith that he's going to be, because he's a willing blocker. He's not going to be the Mike Gesicki type. He's going to be the guy that will at least be excited to learn how to pass block and run block. And if that becomes a prohibitive factor and he just physically can't do it, then so be it. But the mindset's not going to get in the way. And so if you've got a guy who's willing to be an every down player, then your snap count goes up. Even if it's a Dalton Kincaid thing. And there was a story that the coach told me about Kincaid when he first transferred to Utah from USD. And the coach goes, well, we kind of thought we'd graduate one of our tight ends. He decided to stay. So we have 2 guys ahead of you on the depth chart. And Kincaid looks at his coach and he goes, that's fine. We'll play 13 personnel, which means like 3 tight ends on the field. And that's just the kind of guy he is. He's like, I'll stay positive. Obviously they're not going to play 13 personnel, but like, he's just messing around. He's like, it's okay. Like we'll figure it out, kind of thing. So they will probably pay the Bills will probably put 2 tight ends on the field to make sure that they make use of him. And I think he'll be most useful in 2024, but will be useful to them in 2023.
Yeah, and if you look at in totality, this is the best team that Brandon Beane has, quite frankly, walked out onto the field. The depth at almost every single position, minus middle linebacker. Obviously, we still know that's kind of a real question mark. And then obviously is Spencer Brown, if his health is going to stay. But outside of that, on the offense, when we talk about Stefon Diggs and his frustration, and obviously there is some statistical background to that. If you look at last season when he started the year, out of the first 6 games, he had 9, 15, 11, 6, 11, 13 for targets. And out of those games, 3 out of the 5 were over 100 yards. Excuse me. Yeah, 4 out of the 6 were 100 yards or more. And then on top of that, they had 62 and 74-yard receptions, or 62 and 74 yards. At the back end, he was 9, 5, 9, 2, and 10. The guy just wasn't getting what he wanted. I think what he's going to see is a more developed, like you were saying, well-rounded offense. Nobody trusted the running attack, so they didn't care. They didn't try to challenge the Bills' running attack. Not that Devin Singletary was bad. He was 4.2 yards a carry. He was fine. That's really what he was. He was fine. But he wasn't going to beat you down with his speed, and he wasn't going to beat you down with his size. And they didn't use James Cook enough. He had 67 carries over 17 weeks. So you knew the running game was non-existent for what it was worth. And then after Stefon Diggs, what did they have? They had not much in terms of talent. And that's not to, deprecate any one of those guys. But I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at other teams, their second receiver or their tight end is significantly better than what the Bills have. So now that you see that Knox with a full season, with his brother passing last year, he should be in a better place and he's healthier. You obviously have Gabe Davis potentially healthier. Dalton Kincaid is here. Then you have Trent Sherfield and Deontay Hardy and a lot more players with intangible pieces that they can put into this offense and make this offense more well-rounded. That should in itself help Stefon Diggs to be a better receiver. Because I think that the frustration from him wasn't just the fact that he wasn't getting targets. It was the fact that the script just made no sense. It was just like you were saying, it was all gas, no brakes, and that's fine. But there are times you need to shift gears and you need to matriculate down the field. And like they say, death by 1,000 cuts. That's what made the Bills good in 2020 and 2021 is when they had Cole Beasley, they were able to beat the crap out of you by just doing a 14, 15, 16 play drive that just wore your defense out. When Josh is throwing 60-yard bombs trying to beat you through there, it just doesn't work, especially when they're sitting deep on you. So I like what both of you are saying. I think it's an interesting kind of schism to be in right now for the Buffalo Bills. One thing I did want to ask you, Henry, is obviously we saw that DeAndre Hopkins is visiting with the New England Patriots right now. It seems pretty comfy with Matt Judon, though. Matt Judon's trying to get everybody to sign with the New England Patriots every year. What is your perspective? Is this something that can work? Is it something that the Bills fans should even worry about with McCorkle behind, center?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I was talking to someone in the Patriots building today, and they felt good about how they presented themselves to Hopkins. They felt optimistic about the possibility of signing him. And then he left the building. I think they felt really good. And then, but I think what happened probably soon after was he probably is at the very least making phone calls to other interested teams if he wants to make a move. But from what I've read from Rappaport and Schefter, and now Jeremy Fowler of ESPN, they're saying that maybe he wants to sit tight, that maybe he wants to wait until even training camp or into training camp to make his decision. And it would make some sense if he wanted to wait to get into training camp because he doesn't like to practice, supposedly. So if it's like, oh, I'll just I'll just not be there for a while, then he gets to skip practice. But I think realistically, he could make a risky play, which is wait until someone gets hurt and they're desperate and they want to spend $15 million on him, or nobody gets hurt and then he is in even more trouble. He's got to take a even further substandard deal by his measurement. Right now, I'm guessing the Patriots have about $10 million 1 year on the table for him. I don't know if he waits all the way up to the first day of training camp, whether that deal would still be there for him. I bet they'd be like ready to kind of roll without him if practice kind of started without him. But you never know, because they are pretty desperate for talent on the perimeter. Let me tell you, their tight ends look good. Their receivers do not. Tyquan Thornton is their second round pick from last year. He has had like flashes, but it's like without pads, so you can't take it too seriously. Kendrick Bourne kind of still looks like a head case. He's making mental mistakes, and there's nothing that's going to drive him off the field quicker than that. Bill Belichick put him in the doghouse last year, and if he does this stuff again this year, he's not going to play. And then there's Devontae Parker. Again, he's winning jump balls at minicamp and OTAs, but it's no pads, so he's got a big advantage, not just with size, but without the physicality involved. He's supposed to win those. And that's kind of their thing. I mean, Juju Smith-Schuster has been hurt, so we haven't been able to see him. He's kind of the Jacoby Myers 2.0, but that's not scaring anyone. I mean, the Chiefs couldn't even turn Juju Smith-Schuster into a 1,000-yard receiver. So if Patrick Mahomes can't do it, I don't know if Mac Jones can. This doesn't add up to a scary offense. I think the Patriots would like to feel optimistic about signing DeAndre Hopkins, because they kind of need to sign DeAndre Hopkins to stay relevant in the AFC East. But I think that the unfortunate thing for them is he might be using them as a leverage point, where he's like, the Bill wants to pay me $10 million. Who's going to do it? And so he goes and looks around and sees if the Chiefs or somebody will toss that offer out there, and get close to matching. But we'll see. I think that's kind of where I stand. They need him, and they have to hope that he feels like he needs them.
Henry, for the Bills fans who've been holding on for dear life and clamoring for their dreams to come true, give them perspective on what DeAndre Hopkins and the Bills, if that marriage ever could exist, or is that dream far-fetched at this point?
It's far-fetched, but it's not impossible. So it's tough. Bean said, hey, I'm not going to make any big splashes this offseason, but then he went out and made big splashes. Like, if we're talking about rock size, right? He didn't do any of these, but he did like a bunch of these. And so the Leonard Ford deal, that's like a pretty big deal. That was like a pretty sizable contract to be thrown around. He made a lot of moves that like I kind of referred to it as Moneyball, like not in a story, but in a tweet. And then someone on Twitter replied to me like, he spent the X most in the league this offseason, like kind of like, and I was like, oh, like point taken, like fair. Because he did make a lot of small moves, which like a lot of championship GMs do. They like aim small, miss small. They're like kind of firing a few things into holes that they have, hoping that these like veterans will kind of do just enough to help kind of keep the roster together. So originally I thought that was why they wouldn't sign Hopkins, basically, was like, oh, they're playing the small ball game. They're not interested in big signings. What we've seen, the Floyd deal isn't a true $9 million deal because of the way that the structure of the deal works. And so $10 million is a lot of money for the Bills. There's a way for them to set up a 2-year deal that puts them deeper into cap hell next year, if they really want to throw another dart at the board for 2023. It's totally feasible. They will just be kind of what the Saints were 2 years ago next year, where they're like cutting a bunch of guys, they're restructuring everybody. It's a little bit like, the Titanic is sinking and they're just like pushing people off. So I know Bean doesn't want to get to that point. What he wants is like, this sort of like plateau where they can be competitive every year, and that this year they don't have to go all in, because next year they're going to have a same team of the same caliber, and it's going to be, there's never a win now mode. It's a very Belichickian approach, honestly. Like Josh Allen's big contract, they're filling in around him. They're taking sort of that mid-tier of free agency and targeting it aggressively with hopes that they can find a few deals that really make big differences for them, rather than one big deal that kind of is like an all eggs, one basket kind of thing.
Beautiful. Well, Henry, I truly appreciate you taking some time with us tonight. We'll definitely have to have you come back on. Maybe after training camp, we can discuss and give your AFC East prediction. But go ahead and let everybody know where they can find your content.
Yeah, sure. So follow me on the Fox Sports app if you have it. You can just literally favorite me or favorite Bills content. Either way, you'll find my stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at Henry, HENRY, McKenna, McKenna. And then foxsports.com, same thing. You can find me at the Bills Vertical. And then if you want to get angry about my nice things about the Jets or the Patriots, the Dolphins, you can follow those too and see all my nice comments, my nice columns about how good they are.
Beautiful. Henry, hey, we really appreciate you taking some time. Guys, make sure you check on his stuff. He's got some super, super good articles out there. Henry, we'll be talking soon. You take care, friend.
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
So, obviously, that was Henry McKenna, Fox reporter, covers all things AFC East, some fantastic content. Now let's go ahead and we're going to hear from our guy, one of the originators of Cover One, Greg Thompson.
Hey guys, Cover One is excited to announce our new partnership with BetUS. BetUS has a live wagering on all major games, the best betting variety in the business, and an easy deposit and withdrawal process with the fastest payouts in the industry. Our loyal Cover One fans get a choice between two exclusive offers, either a 125% sign-up bonus on your first deposit up to $2,500 or a free $50 bet with no deposit required. Just use promo code COVER1 on the links provided in the show description below. BetUS, where the game begins.
Thanks, Greg. So obviously, if you guys have any betting stuff right now, US Open's going on. Make sure you put your bets in, get your money back, get some bonus money to go bet on some stuff. So moving into that, we are going to do everybody's favorite segment, the damn segment. So Ian, go ahead and kick that off. Damn. This week's Damn Award recipient is a man that the production crew is honestly baffled that they haven't written about yet. Antonio Brown is nothing short of a human meme at this point, and his recent actions with the Albany Empire certainly reinforce that. For those of you who at home who might be unsure of what Mr. Big Chest is accused of, let's give a bit of background. Antonio Brown, up until today, owned an arena football team that played in the National Arena League. It seemed to be going well, with the team winning 2 consecutive league championships, albeit not under Brown's ownership. The projections for the team were excellent for their 2023 season, up until news broke that Antonio Brown, simply put, wasn't regularly paying his staff and players, or fines that he had been assessed for a myriad of violations. So, as well as just completely refusing to pay his league membership fees, everything was going great. He also suspended 6 players for a minor disagreement, 3 of whom were team captains, 1 who was the league MVP the previous year, leading to the team's 8 best players to just up and leave the team with 2 weeks of Brown becoming the full owner of the team. For reference, Antonio Brown purchased a minority share of the team in March of 2023, then purchased the remaining shares April 19th of 2023. Within 2 weeks, he had successfully turned the best team in the league into a sinking ship and just didn't pay his players or staff after taking ownership. His representatives also said to a local newspaper that Antonio Brown wasn't the team's owner, instead that it was owned by a foreign national named Antonio El Allah. Yeah, and also told the newspaper that Antonio Brown wasn't born in the United States, which is verifiably false. Additionally, in an attempt to raise attendance, he promised fans that he would play in a home game, then bowing out of that promise minutes before the game started. This nightmare has come to an end today when the league finally gave up and terminated the team's membership within the NAL. For being the only team owner more toxic than Dan Snyder, we tip our cap to Mr. Big Chest and give him this week's Damn Award recipient. Ian, go ahead. We're going to play some audio just to give reference. We have some audio from an interview just before he was canned.
The minutia of people distract us. This is the last year in the NAL. Next year we go into the AFL. A lot of owners around here got this type of money to even be in this league, so let's get that clear. A lot of naysayers around here, I've been seeing a lot of players chip chat about me. You think I care what the NAL players say about me? I'm giving these guys jobs. I'm giving people careers. I'm giving people the opportunity to live out their dreams. I'm not going to go back and forth with an NIA player who's trying to be what I used to be. So I want to be a leader. I want to be details about my action, what I stand for, what I represent here. I want to be clear about the minutia of what we're doing and how we're doing things. So I want to share the people in the media who write negative about Antonio Brown and who lose sight of what the truth is here in Albany. I didn't come here to make money. I came here to represent something that I grew up in as a little kid and give back to the community that helped shape me to be who I am today. So now let's lose sight of why I'm here. I came back here in the community I grew up in to give the people here that I grew up like me and the players here who grew up like my dad a better opportunity to live out their dreams. I am a lobbyist. I'm the guy who take the mission and make dreams fulfilled come true. So I want people to lose sight about who I am, what I'm doing, and what's my purpose. You know what I mean? As an owner, what's important? Winning, sponsorships, and tickets. Not regular players that's 30 years old who just trying to be regular in their life, play spring ball, okay, April to this. No, I'm looking for the players that really go to the next level in their lives. That's what I'm trying to help players fulfill their dreams. So when people talk about me, let's be clear.
So that was Antonio Brown, folks. For anybody who caught that midway through and didn't know what babbling that was, that is Antonio Brown, who was previously the owner of the Albany Empire before the Albany Empire was disbanded from the NAL, the National Arena League. Glenn, what's your thoughts on this situation?
Antonio Brown is clearly struggling. He's I don't know if he's getting help that he needs, but I feel like he's a man that's screaming on the inside, and his actions on the outside need to, somebody needs to step up for him. Somebody that loves him. I think he's struggling, in my opinion.
Yeah. So for anybody who's concerned about Stefon Diggs and his antics, just render the fact that it could be a whole hell of a lot worse. Yeah. And, for a lot of teams, it was a lot worse. You saw what happened with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who brought him in, that he decided to run right off the field. So, obviously he's a little off the reservation. Fontes Perfect took what he had left and sent it into the solar plexus. So, it's an unfortunate situation. What I will say about Antonio Brown, and I'll make this short because let's get into the Bills talk, but it's a sad situation for a guy that probably should have been into the Hall of Fame, had the talent to be in the Hall of Fame. Unfortunately destroyed his career by making some terrible decisions. And more than likely one day you'll probably find out had CTE, in a pretty severe case of it, because the actions, the decisions, the remarks, everything involving Antonio Brown have been so far from normal, unfortunately, that he is just, it's a sad situation. So, that being said, let's move on beyond that. And we're going to talk about a situation that was on Twitter and Spaces and all over the place. I've been talking about it for the last couple of days, which is why the description says McDermott should what? I have had a lot of fans specifically tell me, but also, give their perspective that if McDermott doesn't win the Super Bowl this year or get there, that he should be on the hot seat or fired. Glenn, what are your thoughts on Coach McDermott? What are your thoughts on how his performance has been, and your stance on what to do with him as the coach and how that all should shake out moving forward?
We know that McDermott's a great leader, and it's okay to say where he might lack, even and without it taking away from his great qualities and what he's given to the Bills fans and the Bills organization and what he's helped turn them into. There can be limitations, though, when you start getting into, okay, what is next for the Buffalo Bills? The definition of insanity is, doing the same thing but expecting a different result. This season was tough. That's the big story, right? It's every little thing that's happened to the Buffalo area, the fans, and even the team directly to still, have the regular season they did. And you could tell, when they were falling short. That playoff game against Miami, to me, they squeaked by, in my opinion. That you talked about long ball. You had to make or break that game, and they won it. The game against Cincinnati, they looked flat, they looked defeated, and you can dial it into, in my opinion, what they went through this year. They were just spent, the players mentally, physically. And during that game, I was very much in the fan moment as where I was thinking, they're not prepared. They don't look prepared. They don't look ready to play this game. And I had some thoughts about McDermott that he should have been on the hot seat at that moment. But as I digested and took it in and understood a little bit, I digressed a bit. But I honestly do think, given, let's take 23, let's see where this goes. I think anything but a Super Bowl appearance is something that we should start questioning, because there's going to be a window with Josh Allen. But we talked about the New Orleans Saints just in this show alone, these different windows, these rookie contract windows, that's pretty big with the league. You got to win within those of your quarterback. There's going to be a lot of working that's going to need to be done after this point to keep the Bills competitive. And we still need Josh Allen to be who Josh Allen is. I do think that you do have to question it a little bit. The Leslie Frazier move has taken the heat off of the defense letting us down these few years, and McDermott taking that over. We'll see what he can do. I don't know where the excuses lie at this point, but seeing the successes of Brian Daboll lately, does it continue? It will continue to make it sting for some Bills fans that really think, should Daboll have been, the Bills guy at some point? I don't know. It's just, it gets talked about a lot.
Right. Yeah. When it comes to situations like this, and inherently for Bills fans who went through the cycle of coaches and GMs and quarterbacks, I mean, everybody knows we're all Bills fans. We went through the 17 years of misery and saw every type of bad coach, every type of bad general manager and quarterback along the way. There is this feeling that when things don't go right, rinse and repeat and try to find something that works. But I think people fail to realize that it could be so much worse, and that McDermott,
Right.
though has his deficiencies, has been an unbelievable coach along the way. And people want to say Dable
Absolutely.
is an unbelievable coach. He had a good year. I won't take anything away from Brian Dable. That was 1 year. 1 year as a head coach. If he flops and falls on his face, well, guess what? People will be calling for his head, just like they called for his head when he was the offensive coordinator after a couple of years of being with the Bills. So when we talk about McDermott, I think the one thing that people have to remember, and if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know I tweeted a couple times over the last couple of days about McDermott. I love McDermott. I think he's a fantastic coach. We are privileged to have a guy that is as good as he is. And I think people fail to truly realize how fortunate we are. Are there things he needs to get better with? Absolutely. But if you go through 32 head coaches, every coach has something or a bunch of things he needs to get better with. And if you look at the way McDermott has been from day one till now, he has.
Yeah.
Just in general, he has gotten better. Obviously, this year with his defense, it's going to really test what what kind of coach he can be while also working through the defense. We see that can happen. Andy Reid, who is one of the best in the league, is also able to run the offense and do both things. He's perfectly capable. McDermott is the same way. He will make sure that everything is divvied up exactly how it needs to be. But when you talk about the whole team, I think what people look at and they say, like, yeah, he's gone through some stuff, and yeah, McDermott needs to get better. You're right. There are things he needs to get better, but you also have to look at everything because there's context to every season, right?
Mhm.
And yeah, 13 seconds was tough. But the other part about that is, and I'm not saying it's inexcusable because something that happened in that game is just, it's ridiculous in and of itself. We didn't have our number one cornerback. You're playing against three perennial future Hall of Famers in one game. And quite frankly, both teams kind of shit the bed for most of the game until the end. And then they both just came alive at the right opportune moment. Um, McDermott has not been a bad coach. He's had bad moments. And I think that's not indicative of a bad coach. And I
Sure.
think that when you look at his whole tenure, he's taken a team that for 17 years was the butt of most jokes, was never on TV. It was 1 o'clock with maybe they might give us a Thursday night football game. And that was it. And we were
Yeah.
just kind of sitting at the back of the room and an afterthought for most of it. Now you have a guy that, and you have to remember, he got here before Bean. Now, granted, I think that was kind of, they were both there. They just couldn't talk about Bean because he was still under contract with Carolina.
Sure.
But if you look at the the two guys, McDermott came in and his first pick with Doug Whaley was Tre'Davious White. He has transformed this entire organization into a desired, not only a landing spot, but a bouncing board for a lot of players. They want to come here and revitalize their career. It's not, they don't want to come here to die because it's the Arctic. And I think that's what people need to take a step back and realize that, let's say you did get rid of McDermott and we're just going to play this what if hypothetical game. Then what do you do? What do you
Right.
do? Who do you bring in? Are you going to bring in a college coach, a young guy? Because what happens then if that falls on its face? Then you're talking of imploding in 2-3 years again. And you see how quickly that happens, considering Sean McDermott, who's going into his 7th year, is the 6th most tenured coach in the NFL. 6th.
Yeah.
There's only 5 coaches in the NFL who have longer tenure, and he's only been here 7 years. That tells you what you need to know. The attrition rate in the NFL is very, very, very little.
Yep.
On top of that, what happens when you get rid of him? What happens to all these players? Like Tre'Davious White, who has sat there and emphatically said how he is dedicated to McDermott because of the fact that McDermott picked him first. He has loyalties to McDermott. The same thing with Josh. There's a lot of players that have that same feeling. Players that took less to stay here because of the culture that is driven, the family-oriented environment, what they went through last year, because McDermott allows them to be a family and gets them through those moments when it's tough, right? People don't realize that if you were to go ahead and get rid of McDermott, not only would you have to find another coach, and I don't know about you, but finding a high quality coach like Sean McDermott is
Sure.
not easy.
Sure.
The other part about that is what kind of residual effect that has on the roster and the makeup of this team and organization moving forward, and what kind of long-term effects that could have. And the other thing, which Ralph Wilson Sr. said, and I agree because I've said it countless times, one, Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane. Sean doesn't report to Brandon. They both report to Terry. Terry ain't getting rid of either one of them before he's building a brand new stadium. It just ain't going to happen. If you look at it at normal PR or marketing or money making, they're not going to shake everything up right before they're going to ask people for a ton of money. They have a very sustainable, stable, just an organization with continuity. That's what they want. They want to keep things really, really, really stable.
And
McDermott has done things. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and I do like when the Bills win the Super Bowl, positive, manifestation. I want it to be with McDermott. I want him to reap these fruits of his labor and, be able to relish in this with the entire city, because the team that wins the Super Bowl one day for the Buffalo Bills, whether it's just one, is going to be a legacy team and people and organization that will live on forever with the people and the stories and the generations of Bills fans. And I want it to be McDermott. I want it to be Josh Allen. And sitting here in this situation, I don't want 5 years from now, and there's nothing I can do about that, to be, man, what if? What happened? And it's, and like you said, who do you get? That opportunity right now isn't better than what it could have been maybe a year ago if they were thinking about it. But your point is very strong. Terry Pagula is not going to get rid of the two of them, especially because the Bills are still in this thing. They're still a top 2, 3, 4, 5 team in the NFL. Their organization is being recognized as such also as a whole. The Buffalo Bills never had that. I was a fan, probably like you and a lot of Bills fans, through the drought era. My fandom started in the Super Bowl years. And then right after the Super Bowl, I cried when they cut their biggest stars as a kid. And I'm like, how could a team do that? And, that was my first feel of betrayal with this, all the way through to the Toronto series. And right now is the most stable I've ever felt as a Bills fan. And now that I'm able to pass that on to my children, I don't know, it's just, I love it. And I don't want to discredit any of that either. I want this thing so bad, like everybody else does. And there's still a bright future. There's still opportunity. Do I think McDermott should go after this year? No, but I do see him improve every single year, like you said, like Josh Allen did. They both had this trajectory together. They've learned from their mistakes. They've grown together. They're both great, quality Buffalo type guys. I don't know. I want to win with them. I want this to be their legacy.
For sure. Yeah, and I mean, you have to also think, and the comment that Josh made McDermott is not true. First off, McDermott has been here before Josh. McDermott got us to the playoffs without Josh. McDermott got us to the playoffs with a bad team, a team that backed into the playoffs with an average quarterback in Tyrod Taylor, who just did enough not to lose and just enough to not win. He was just average, with a decent to good defense and end of career LaShawn McCoy. What McDermott did with that team
and an Andy
galvanizing
Dalton
them
to Tyler Boyd play.
right. But they had to get to that point to even be. They had to put themselves in position to even have Andy Dalton back them in. And what they did with that team is unbelievable. The next season, they were bad, of course. And then the following year, they got back to the playoffs. And yes, Josh was a part of that. But you have to remember, and most people, if you've never coached or you've never been part of sports, a coach is not always going to do everything. A lot of that stuff is on the field, or it's position coaches or play calling. He doesn't call the offense. What you have to realize is McDermott puts them in position mentally to be able to get over certain humps throughout the season. In a football season, though it seems short, is incredibly long for these guys. And you need a good leader like Sean McDermott to get you through those moments. Sean McDermott has been and I'm not trying to be a homer, trying to be the guy that sits there and just props him up. But you have to remember, if you get rid of McDermott, you're talking about taking a chance on a guy that may or may not be able to get you to the promised land. People keep talking, oh, we should get Brian Daboll. I like Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll's a great coordinator. So we think, right? People sit there and say, well, Josh Allen made Brian Daboll, or Josh Allen made Sean McDermott. We still don't know if Josh Allen made Brian Daboll either. Josh Allen makes a lot of people look really good because Josh Allen's very talented. Josh Allen can make people really good. Yes, Daboll can script the hell out of plays, but Josh Allen also does things that most quarterbacks cannot do. Just the same as if you look at Brady, people thought Belichick was a really good coach. Now it's kind of coming out that Brady was the Patriots and Belichick just kind of was along for the ride. Look at the Patriots the last 20 years without him.
That point was spinning right through my head as you're rattling these off. I'm like, the Belichick Brady thing. That's a huge, it was a huge debate forever.
Yep. And that's why they tell you never take a coordinator from a really good quarterback, i.e. Nathaniel Hackett, right? You don't take one of those guys because generally speaking, they're not the ones running the offense. The quarterback is. So, when it comes down to it, I know people love the idea because when things aren't going right, it's easy to look for an easy answer to, press the release button, the the let's fix it quick button, right? The difference is what McDermott brings behind the scenes is beyond invaluable. Sean McDermott has been a steady hand for a franchise that went through so much tumultuous behavior that, man, they are in such a bad situation that he came in and changed everything. I mean, look at Rex Ryan. That was a horse and donkey show. And then before that, you had, Dick Duran and Mike Mularkey, Greg Williams. It was just a litany of blech. Now we have a guy that brings respect. A guy that is trying to get us there. And you know what? Here's the thing. Once we do, and if you look at most coaches, it doesn't happen overnight. Some of them do, but you know what? 31 other coaches look stupid, and 1,680 coaches over the last 56 years who were head coaches in the NFL didn't make it. So what? There's a lot of coaches who have failed, a lot of coaches who've never seen a Super Bowl. And you know what? Sean will. It's just one of those things that it's hard to do. That's why only out of 56 Super Bowls, 35 coaches have been Super Bowl winners. 35. It's an incredibly tall mountain and a hard one to get to at that. And even when you get there, it's hard to win. Andy Reid was terrible when he was in Philadelphia, couldn't get it done, and they launched him. And now he's adorned and thought of as one of the greatest minds of all time. Yet who knows if he really is or if he's riding Mahomes' tail, right? We don't know that. I think the situation is intriguing. I think what McDermott does for this team is like I said, invaluable. I think we are in for a great season. One thing I do want to say, and I'd like if you guys in the chat want to add in, and I'm going to ask you before we get going, Glenn, what is everybody's player that they are excited about? The player that they want to keep an eye on going into the season, somebody that they think is going to be either a catalyst or take a huge step this year. Glenn, who is the guy for you for the Buffalo Bills this season that is, whether it's pivotal to the potential Super Bowl success or somebody that you think is going to move into the next step?
It is James Cook. I think he's going to be able to elevate. I think he's going to go up to the next level. You saw these flashes of him towards the end of the year. You saw it in the beginning of the year when he was still struggling, but he was still looked explosive and promising to me. And I'm glad that they kept giving him opportunities and they were seeing it also. And then towards the end of the year, I was very happy with him, especially he was splitting time with Singletary towards the end. I'm really looking forward to watching Cook in his second year. And I think that he could be the catalyst. He could be a little more, maybe Josh can have a few less rushes and carries and yards, which could be an okay thing, and be a legit threat for, the offense to really open up and have some other opportunities, because they are focusing on Cook and taking him as a legit weapon.
Okay. I like it. I think James Cook is going to have a huge role. People talked last year about Breece Hall and everything that he was. Guys, I want you to go look at James Cook's stats. Go look at James Cook's stats and put them side by side. Breece Hall. James Cook did that with very limited opportunity over 17 weeks. Breece Hall did that in the first 4 games. James Cook has every opportunity to be unreal. Mm-hmm. Unreal. People clamor for Dalvin Cook. Just wait. Just wait. I promise you, James Cook is going to be a monster in this offense now that he's trusted and now that he has confidence. And they tell you year 2 is a whole different player.
Yep.
My guy that I've said time and again, I'm going to stand by this. I said it last week, is Greg Rousseau.
Oh, yeah.
Man, for a guy that came into Miami, a guy that didn't play during the COVID year because of his mother who was a nurse, a guy that came into Miami as a wide receiver / safety, has only really played 3.5 years as a defensive end. And if you look at his stats, he went from 4 sacks in 17 games to 8 sacks in 13 games last year. And he only had Von Miller for a few of those. I'm telling you, what Greg Rousseau can do this year is make a massive, massive leap. He's learning. He's getting into his body. I like to, talk about when you look at little deers or animals that are learning how to walk, right when they're coming out of, being born. They're trying to figure out how to utilize their body, how they stand, how they walk, how they kind of move in motion. That's what Greg Rousseau's doing. He's a 6'6" defensive end that's just mammoth of a human. If you watch his interview, by the other day, he looks huge. He looks absolutely massive. Greg Rousseau is going to be a huge part of this team. If he can figure it out, and I truly and fully anticipate that he's going to, I think he could be 15 sack person this year. I know that sounds crazy. It's a big number. That's an elite defensive end number right there. I think Greg Rousseau can take that step. I think Greg Rousseau is a guy that we're going to take a step back in a couple of years and say, how did we get him at 30? How did we get him at the end of the draft? How did he fall? That's going to be a lot that fans are going to be clamoring and wish that they could have actually gotten. So that's my guy.
Sure. Bills with a double-digit sack guy for the first time in a while. I like it. Floyd, Miller, and Rousseau on, all together towards the end of the season. Hopefully we can get this in the playoffs. I love it. Let's do it. I like that pick.
Absolutely. I'll tell you guys, make sure, just take this all in stride. Be excited about the Bills team. I say it a lot, but man, we are blessed right now. We went through futility for a long time. Take a step back, really take a step back and enjoy these moments as a Bills fan, as a Sabres fan, today as a Bandits fan, as a Buffalo fan right now, man. It's an exciting time to be a Buffalo sports fan. July 1st, they're going to announce Rasmus Dahlin's 8-year extension. That's huge. The Buffalo Bills are on their way to becoming a very, very good team. Not just good, not just great, very, very good. I think this year is going to be promising for us, but take a step back and enjoy it, man. Smell the flowers. Glenn, go ahead and tell people where they can find you and tell them about the Buffalo on the Brain.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. More importantly, get Glenn_Goodberry. I'm the Goodberry variant. You pointed out beginning of the show, a lot of people know my Bengals fan brother, Joe Goodberry. He's, always out there. You can find also BuffaloOnTheBrain.com. My brother and I, we have On the Brain brand, and right now it's Buffalo and Cincinnati. My stuff is Buffalo, hats, shirts, apparel, anything that has Buffalo on the Brain. I'm working on developing, and you can always check it out, and I'm always tweeting stuff. So just come say hi, and I'm very interactive. If you like pizza and wings too, I'm your guy to see that stuff.
Beautiful. I'm gonna have to get one of those hats. I'm gonna have to rock that on my show one of these times. Guys, I gotta tell you thank you. I say this enough. This is my second week back after taking a bit of a hiatus, some mental health time, which I think everybody should do every once in a while. But I just want to thank you guys all for being here. Some great chat, man. You guys were rocking tonight. I really do genuinely appreciate you guys stopping in, spending some time with Cover One, spending some time with us here. One thing I will say is, guys, be nice to each other, be kind, call somebody that you haven't talked to in a while and tell them you love them. I don't think we do enough to be kind as a society and take care of each other. We need to go back to the times where people cared, worried about their neighbor and just genuinely showed love to those around you. Just be a good person and tell somebody you love them. I say it a million times. In January, my grandfather passed away and I didn't see it coming, and I wish I had, because man, it's just time goes fast. My son, he was born in January, 14 days after my grandfather died, and he's going to be 5 months old soon. That's fleeting. Life is fleeting. Enjoy it. Like I said, being a Bills fan is fleeting. As soon as we blink, Josh Allen's career is going to be over. So enjoy all this stuff. Guys, we're a month out from training camp, like I said at the top of the show. If you are coming to training camp, a bunch of us Cover One guys are going to be there. Make sure you come and say hello. If you see us, don't be afraid. Come up, talk to us. Most of us are pretty generally nice guys. Some of us are a little snarkier than others by design. But go ahead, sign up for Cover One Pass. Man, there's some awesome content. Check out all Cover One content. Great shows almost every single day of the week. And let's head into the season, man. This is going to be a lot of fun. Be excited for the Bills coming up. And we will see you guys all next Thursday. We're going to finish this like we always do. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
The Bills make me wanna.